I'm Michelle, 35 years old, the youngest daughter in our family. Today was supposed to be a celebration, a family party at our Fort Worth mansion to honor my late mother's investment legacy. As I raised my glass, my heart full of memories, my older sister stood up, her lips curling into a chilling smirk. "Pack your bags, loser," she announced, her voice slicing through the room like a blade. My dad and his new wife, someone I'd sacrificed everything to care for, clapped and raised their glasses as if her words were the perfect gift for the occasion. My stomach dropped, betrayal burning in my chest. I forced a smile, excused myself, and stepped outside into the cool Texas air. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and made one quick call. 10 minutes later, the screaming started and the truth began to unravel. Before we dive deeper into this wild family drama, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. It's amazing to see how far this story reaches, and your support means the world to me. Our family in Fort Worth was never simple. My dad, William, a retired investor who built a small fortune in real estate, was the rock we all leaned on. He spent decades flipping properties across Texas, turning our 3-story mansion into a symbol of his success. My mom was his college sweetheart, the one who balanced his ambition with warmth, filling our home with laughter and Sunday dinners. She was healthy, vibrant, managing their investments with a sharp mind until 5 years ago when she passed away. The doctors called it cancer, but her decline was so rapid, so unnatural, it never sat right with me. Dad crumbled after that, forgetting to eat, letting the house fall into chaos, his once sharp mind clouded by grief. I was 30 then, teaching 3rd grade in New York, living in a tiny apartment with a view of the Hudson. My life was full lesson plans, coffee dates, a steady relationship with a guy named Tom. But everything changed with a call from my sister. She's a director at a tech firm in California, always too busy for family. "Dad's a mess," she said, her tone sharp and accusing. "He's not eating, the house is falling apart. Someone needs to step up, and it's not going to be me." She had her own life, her fancy condo, her husband, her perfect kids. The responsibility fell on me, the only one without those ties. I took a leave of absence, packed a bag, and moved back into my childhood bedroom in Fort Worth. It was supposed to be temporary, a few months to get Dad back on his feet. But his grief wasn't just emotional, it aged him. He'd forget appointments, misplace keys, and sometimes stare blankly during conversations. I couldn't leave him like that. So I quit my job, broke things off with Tom, who refused to move to Texas, and stayed. The mansion mom's pride became my responsibility. Every room held memories, the dining table where she taught me to budget, the porch where we'd sip lemonade, the office where she kept her investment ledgers. A few months after I settled in, my sister called again. I was wiping down the kitchen counter, still cluttered with Dad's unopened mail, when her name lit up my phone. "You're wasting your life," she snapped, not bothering with a hello. "Dad doesn't need a babysitter. You're just clinging to that house for the inheritance." Her words stung like she was spitting on everything I'd given up. I tried to explain Dad's confusion, his unsteady hands, the way he'd call me by Mom's name sometimes, but she cut me off. "Get a grip, Michelle. I'm not dropping my career to play nurse. Figure it out." The call ended with her hanging up, leaving me staring at the phone, anger and doubt twisting in my gut. She hadn't visited in over a year, hadn't called Dad in months, but somehow I was the one doing it wrong. My only ally was my dad's younger brother, Uncle Robert. He lived an hour away in Dallas, running a small accounting firm. Despite his busy schedule, he'd drive down every other weekend, bringing takeout and checking on Dad. "You're doing the right thing," he told me one evening, his voice steady as we sat on the porch. "Your sister's too caught up in her own world to see it." He'd noticed Dad's decline too, the forgetfulness, the way he'd repeat stories. "Keep an eye on things," he said. "Something doesn't add up." Then there was Betty, our neighbor from across the street. She'd known Mom for decades back when they'd swap recipes and gossip over coffee. One afternoon while I was mowing the lawn, she wandered over, her eyes soft with nostalgia. "Your mom was so full of life," she said, leaning on her cane. "Always talking about her investments, how this house was her legacy for you kids." She paused, her brow furrowing. "Funny thing, though, that nurse who took care of her at the end before she got so sick, she came by a few times asking about your mom's will. Said she was just curious about estate planning, but it fell off to me." Her words hit like a punch. That nurse, I realized, was the same woman Dad would later marry. It wasn't a coincidence. My mind raced, piecing together fragments: Mom's sudden decline, the way she'd been fine 1 month and bedridden the next. Betty's story wasn't just gossip. It was a crack in the facade, a clue that something darker was at play. I thanked her, my voice tight, and went inside, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and determination. This wasn't just about Dad anymore. I had to dig deeper for Mom's sake. That phone call from Lisa accusing me of clinging to the inheritance lit a fire in me. I couldn't shake Betty's words about the nurse asking about Mom's will, but before I could dig deeper, another call came months after I'd settled back in Fort Worth. Lisa's voice was cold, almost clinical. "Dad's getting worse, Michelle. He can't live alone. You're there, deal with it." She didn't offer to help, didn't ask about Dad, just hung up after another jab about me wasting my potential. Her words echoed in my head, but Dad's condition was what kept me up at night. He'd forget to take his meds, leave the stove on, call me by Mom's name. I knew then I wasn't going back to New York. I called my school, resigned my teaching position, and ended things with Tom. He wanted a city life, not a caregiver's burden in Texas. I packed away my dreams and took over the mansion Mom's legacy, with its oak-paneled study and sunlit kitchen where she'd planned investments. Managing the house was a full-time job. Bills piled up, repairs needed scheduling, and Dad's arthritis made stairs a struggle. I hired a part-time cleaner, but I handled his meds appointments and meals myself. Uncle Robert checked in often, his weekend visits a lifeline. "You're carrying too much," he said one night, handing me a coffee as we sorted Dad's paperwork. "But you're all he's got." His words were kind, but they underscored the truth: Lisa wasn't coming, and I was alone in this. About a year after I moved back, Dad met his new wife, Susan, a former nurse at his cardiologist's office. She was 55, sharp-eyed, with a warm smile that seemed rehearsed. They married within 6 months, faster than anyone expected. At first, I was cautiously hopeful. Susan cooked for Dad, drove him to checkups, even got him to join a local book club. The house felt alive again, and Dad's mood lifted. But something about her gnawed at me. She'd linger in Mom's old office, asking casual questions about the mansion's value. "This place must be worth a fortune," she'd say, her tone too light, too probing. I brushed it off, thinking I was paranoid, but then I noticed Dad's meds changing. His usual blood pressure pills looked different, smaller, a shade off. He'd get drowsy after dinner, more confused than usual, calling me sweetie like he did Mom. One evening, I caught Susan in Mom's office, rifling through a locked drawer where we kept old financial records. The deed Chuk Mom's will was in there, naming Dad as life tenant and me as heir to the mansion. I froze in the doorway, my heart pounding. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Susan snapped the drawer shut, her smile tight. "Just organizing, Michelle. You're imagining things." Her words were smooth, but her eyes darted to the side, a flicker of guilt. I didn't push she'd turn it back on me, make me feel like the intruder. But that moment was a line in the sand. I couldn't trust her. I confided in Karen, Mom's old friend from their investment club days. She came over one afternoon, her face heavy with memory. "Your mom was so sharp," Karen said, stirring her tea, But that last month when the nurse was around, she changed. Got weak, confused fast. I saw that nurse swapping her pills once thought it was a mistake. Now I wonder. Her words hit like a brick. That nurse was Susan caring for Mom before she married Dad. I called Dr. Donna, Mom's former doctor, who still practiced in Fort Worth. Over coffee, she pulled Mom's old records. Her decline wasn't typical for cancer. Dr. Donna said, her brow furrowed. I flagged it then, but no one followed up. Her meds were off, wrong doses, wrong pills. She promised to dig deeper, compare them to Dad's current prescriptions. Susan's behavior grew bolder. She'd hover when I gave Dad his meds, suggesting new ones from her old nursing contacts. Dad's confusion spiked once he forgot where the garage was, a place he'd parked for 30 years. Lisa, when I called her, dismissed it. He's old, Michelle. Stop overthinking. But Uncle Robert backed me up. Watch her, he said, his voice low. If she's messing with his meds, we need proof. That night, as I locked Mom's office, Susan's words echoed, "You're imagining things." They stung because part of me wondered if I was wrong. But Karen's story, Dr. Donna's records, and that locked drawer told me otherwise. Susan wasn't just after the house, she was hiding something bigger, something tied to Mom's death. When she caught me eyeing her at breakfast, her smile was a warning. "Careful, Michelle," she said, her tone icy. "You don't want to stir up trouble." Her words weren't just a brush off, they were a threat, and I knew I had to act fast. Susan's icy warning, "Careful, Michelle," lit a spark I couldn't ignore. Her rummaging through Mom's dichuk wasn't just suspicious. It was a signal something sinister was brewing. I started in Mom's old office, where I found her leather-bound journal tucked behind investment ledgers. Its pages held her final thoughts, and one entry stopped me cold. The nurse asked about the will again today. Strange. That nurse was Susan years before she met Dad. My hand shook as I read on Mom's words, hinting at unease about her meds. I needed more proof. Late that night, I used Mom's old login details still scribbled in the journal to access her email. Buried in an archived folder, I found messages between Susan and Lisa, dated 3 years before Mom's death. "The house is worth millions," Lisa wrote. "Get close to him after she's gone. I'll handle the rest." Susan replied, "I'm in. The daughter might be a problem, but I'll manage." They'd planned this from the start. I couldn't confront them yet, suspicions weren't enough. I ordered a small security camera online, the kind that blends into bookshelves, and installed it in the kitchen where Susan sorted Dad's meds. The footage was chilling Susan swapping his blood pressure pills for something else, her movements quick practiced. I saved every clip, my heart racing with each one. I reached out to Dr. Donna, who agreed to run a discreet blood test on Dad during his next visit. The results show sedatives not on his prescription, she confirmed over the phone, her voice grave. "It's the same pattern I saw in your Mom's records, unprescribed meds, wrong doses." Uncle Robert, when I showed him the footage, clenched his jaw. "We need to protect him legally," he said. "Now." I called my old college friend Cynthia, a lawyer specializing in elder law. She drove from Dallas the next day, her briefcase stuffed with documents. Over coffee in Mom's office, she drafted a healthcare proxy and a new power of attorney limiting decisions to Uncle Robert and me, revoking any prior ones. Dad signed them on a good day when his mind was clear, with Cynthia and a notary as witnesses. We hid the originals in a safe at her office, keeping copies in Dad's old investment binder, a place Susan never touched. But then things unraveled. Susan caught the camera's glint one morning while grabbing coffee. "What's this?" she snapped, yanking it down. "Spying on me, Michelle? I could call the cops for invasion of privacy." Her voice was low, threatening, her eyes daring me to push back. I stayed calm, claiming it was for home security, but my pulse hammered. She wasn't just suspicious, she was dangerous. Lisa escalated things. I called her to test the waters, asking if she'd visit Dad soon. "You're out of line," she hissed over the phone. "Keep snooping and I'll sue you for harassment. Dad's fine with Susan, you're the one causing trouble." Her words cut deep, but worse was Dad's reaction. One evening, as I helped him with his meds, he looked at me confused. "Susan says you're stressed, Michelle. Maybe she's right. You don't need to hover." His words stung worse than Lisa's threats. I knew Susan was feeding him lies, but the twist came when he added, "I don't want to lose her. After your mom, I can't be alone." His voice cracked, and I saw it, a flicker of guilt. He'd suspected something about Mom's death, maybe even the meds, but buried it to keep Susan. My heart sank, torn between anger and pity. Was I fighting for him or against him? The final blow came when Dad had a bad episode. I'd swapped his tampered meds back to the originals, hoping to clear his head, but the withdrawal hit hard. One night he collapsed in the hallway, clutching his chest, disoriented. I called Dr. Donna, who rushed over and stabilized him. "It's the sedatives wearing off," she said. "His body's adjusting, but it's risky." I sat by his bed watching him sleep, doubt creeping in. Was I doing more harm than good? Had I misread everything Uncle Robert found me there, my face buried in my hands? "Trust your gut," he said, his voice firm. "Your mom knew something was wrong, and so do you. Keep going." His words pulled me back from the edge. Betty, the neighbor, gave me another piece of the puzzle. She stopped by one morning, her eyes sharp. "I saw Susan meeting some woman in a fancy car out front," she said. "They were talking about selling the house, low voices, real secretive. It had to be Lisa." I checked the camera footage from before Susan found it. Sure enough, Lisa was there, handing Susan papers, their heads bent close. My resolve hardened. They were moving fast, and I was running out of time. Then Lisa called again, her tone venomous. "I'm reporting you to Adult Protective Services," she said. "You're neglecting Dad, and I'll prove it." Her threat was a knife to my throat. If she succeeded, I could lose everything, including Dad. I had to act before she could spin her lies. The taint of betrayal was thick, but I wasn't backing down. Susan and Lisa thought they'd won, but I was ready to turn their game against them. Lisa's threat to call Adult Protective Services was a ticking bomb. I had to move fast, or I'd lose Dad and the house to her lies. The family party to honor Mom's investment legacy was my chance to expose everything. I poured my heart into it, determined to make it perfect despite the storm brewing. I spent weeks planning Mom's favorite lasagna made from her handwritten recipe, a photo album of her real estate triumphs, and a surprise gift, 2 tickets to Hawaii, where she and Dad honeymooned decades ago. I wanted Dad to feel her presence, to remember who we were fighting for, but every step felt like a race against time. I'd caught Lisa and Susan whispering in the study days before papers spread out, their voices hushed when I entered. "Just planning Dad's care," Susan said, her smile tight. I didn't buy it. Dad's confusion had worsened, forgetting names, stumbling over words, clear signs Susan was still tampering with his meds. The day before the party, I double-checked my evidence camera footage of Susan swapping pills emails between her and Lisa, plotting to sell the mansion. Dr. Donna's blood test results, showing unprescribed sedatives, and Mom's journal hinting at her own tampered meds. Cynthia, my lawyer friend, had the legal documents ready, Dad's new healthcare proxy and revoked power of attorney signed when he was clear-headed. Betty, our neighbor, confirmed seeing Lisa's car again, more hushed meetings. My stomach churned, but I kept my focus. This wasn't just about the house, it was about justice for Mom and Dad's dignity. The party day arrived, the mansion buzzing with guests. I set the table with Mom's old china hung photos of her closing deals and placed the Hawaii tickets in a silver envelope. Lisa arrived with her husband, no kids, her eyes scanning the room like a predator. Susan fussed over Dad adjusting his tie, her performance as the perfect wife flawless. Betty and her husband, along with Karen, Mom's old friend, were there, their presence a quiet comfort. I tried to reach Lisa one last time, texting her to join me in planning Dad's future. Her reply was cold. "Don't push me, Michelle." Adult Protective Services is a call away. My blood ran cold. She wasn't bluffing. Dinner went smoothly at first. Dad smiled, reminiscing about Mom's first big sale, his eyes bright despite the fog of meds. I stood to give a toast, my voice steady, ready to honor Mom. Then Lisa stood tapping her glass, her smirk identical to that night in my memory. A toast to Mom's legacy, she began, her tone dripping with triumph. "This mansion's a burden for Dad, too big, too costly. Susan and I have decided it's time to sell and move him to a top-tier care facility." She pulled out a document, waving it like a trophy. "Dad's given me power of attorney. So Michelle, pack your bags, loser. It's time to move on." The room erupted in applause. Susan beaming, Dad looking dazed, clapping weakly. My heart pounded, rage mixing with dread. This was their ambush planned to humiliate me. I excused myself, my legs shaking, and stepped outside. I dialed Cynthia. "It's happening," I whispered. "Get here now." She was 10 minutes away with Uncle Robert and Dr. Donna in tow. I took a deep breath and returned to the dining room where Lisa was passing out papers for signatures. Susan stood behind Dad, her hand possessive on his shoulder. I raised my phone, connected it to the TV, and hit play. The screen lit up with camera footage, Susan swapping Dad's pills, her face clear. Gasps filled the room. I swiped to the emails, Lisa and Susan plotting 3 years before Mom died. "You targeted Dad for this house." I said, my voice steady, and Mom, her meds were tampered with just like his. Dr. Donna stepped forward, holding blood test results. "Unprescribed sedatives in Williams' system," she said. "Same pattern as his late wife's records." Lisa's face paled, but she scoffed. "This is absurd. You're fabricating lies, Michelle." Susan chimed in, her voice shrill. "I've only cared for him." But Karen stood, her voice trembling. "I saw you swap her pills years ago, Susan. I should have spoken up." The room fell silent. Dad's eyes widened, a flicker of clarity breaking through. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice small. Then softer, I suspected something with your mom. But I was so lonely, I couldn't face it." His admission hit like a punch, guilt and grief in his eyes. Lisa snapped, her composure cracking. "Fine. Yes, we plan to sell the house. Susan deserved a cut after playing the perfect wife." Susan lunged forward, screaming, "You promised me the penthouse, Lisa. I did everything you asked." Their voices clashed, accusations, flying guests frozen in shock. Betty shook her head, whispering to her husband. I knew something was off. Cynthia stepped in, holding the legal documents. "The power of attorney Lisa claims is invalid," she said. "William signed a new one with Michelle and Robert notarized when he was competent." Lisa's eyes blazed, but she had no defense. The screaming peaked as Susan grabbed her purse, shouting, "This isn't over," but it was. Dad's face hardened, the fog lifting. He'd seen the truth, and so had everyone else. The screaming at the party faded, but the fallout was just beginning. Susan stormed out that night, her face twisted with rage, dragging a suitcase as she hurled insults. Lisa followed, her lawyer facade crumbling, shouting empty threats about fighting in court. Dad sat slumped at the table, his hands trembling, the weight of their betrayal sinking in. His admission that he'd suspected something about Mom's death but stayed silent out of loneliness cut deeper than Lisa's words. I wanted to be angry, but seeing him so broken, I felt only resolve. This was our chance to take back our family's legacy, and I wasn't letting go. The next morning, Cynthia filed for an emergency protective order to block any property sales or financial withdrawals by Lisa or Susan. She worked fast, her legal precision a lifeline. With Dr. Donna's blood test results confirming unprescribed sedatives in Dad's system, and the camera footage of Susan tampering with his meds, we had enough to push for criminal charges. Cynthia presented the emails, Mom's journal, and Karen's testimony about Susan's actions years ago to the district attorney. The case was airtight. Susan took a plea deal to avoid trial, 3 years probation, a restraining order barring her from contacting Dad, and community service. She left Fort Worth shortly after rumors swirling she'd moved to Nevada. Good riddance. Lisa's punishment was harsher. The investigation uncovered she'd siphoned $30,000 from Dad's accounts over 2 years disguised as consulting fees for her firm. She faced charges for financial elder abuse, risking her career and reputation. Dad tried calling her once, hoping for an explanation, but she hung up blaming me for ruining everything. That was the last we heard from her. Unlike the sister in other stories who might have come back, Lisa didn't. She chose her pride over family, and Dad, his heart heavy but clear, let her go. He filed for divorce from Susan, citing fraud. The judge, appalled by the evidence of medication tampering, granted it, swiftly voiding any claims Susan had to the mansion. 3 months later, Dad was a different man. With Susan's drugs out of his system, his confusion lifted. His arthritis still slowed him down, but he walked the mansion's halls with purpose, his memory sharper than it had been in years. I hired a part-time caregiver, Mrs. Lopez, to help with his meds and appointments, giving me breathing room. Uncle Robert moved closer, buying a condo 10 minutes away. He'd stop by for coffee, swapping stories with Dad about their old investment days. Betty remained a constant, her daily check-ins, a reminder of the community we still had. Karen visited too, sharing memories of Mom that kept her spirit alive. Dad and I took that Hawaii trip 6 months after the party. We stood on the beach where he and Mom honeymooned, watching the sunrise paint the ocean gold. He spoke softly, sharing stories I'd never heard, how Mom negotiated her first deal, her laugh, when they danced under the stars. "She'd be proud of you," he said, his voice thick. "You fought for her for this house when I couldn't." His words were a balm healing wounds I hadn't named, but they also carried a weight. His silence about Mom's death, his fear of loneliness, had nearly cost us everything. I understood it, but forgiveness wasn't reconciliation. Some bridges stay burned. This ordeal taught me hard truths. Greed can twist even family ties, turning love into a weapon. Lisa and Susan saw the mansion as a paycheck, not Mom's legacy. But more than that, I learned to trust my instincts. Betty's offhand comment, Mom's journal, the odd pills, they were clues I could have ignored, but didn't. Dad's silence showed me even good people can falter when fear takes hold. His choice to hide his suspicions about Mom's death wasn't malice, but it enabled harm. That complexity hurt, but it made the lesson clearer. Love demands vigilance. If you see something wrong, meds changing, secret meetings, odd bank transfers, act. Check prescriptions, call a lawyer, talk to neighbors. Those steps can save a home, a life, even a memory. I'm not saying it's easy. Standing up to family, especially when they're all you have, feels like tearing yourself apart, but the truth is worth it. This house, Mom's legacy, still stands because I listened to my gut. It's not just brick and mortar, it's where she taught me strength, where Dad found his way back. If you faced betrayal like this, or fought for someone you love, know you're not alone. The pain is real, but so is the power of doing what's right. I hope my story reminds you to stay sharp, to protect what matters, and to never let greed win. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a journey, and sharing it helps me heal. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment, share your own experiences, or just say hi. Your support keeps these stories alive, and I'm grateful for every one of you.
Don't you dare pretend you didn't know what you were doing, my mom screamed into the phone, her voice so loud I had to hold it away from my ear. We're family. You can't just abandon us because your feelings got hurt. I sat there in my home office, staring at the April rain hitting the windows of my Burlington townhouse, feeling a strange mix of numbness and rage. Everything I thought I knew about my family had just crumbled before my eyes, all because of a simple text message my brother Kevin had accidentally sent to our family group chat instead of the secret one he shared with our parents. My name is Jordan Wright. I'm 35 years old, and until yesterday I thought I was just being a good daughter by helping my parents with their retirement expenses. I'd built a successful marketing consulting business from scratch after college, and when it really took off 5 years ago, I started sending my parents extra money each month. They'd always struggled financially, and I wanted to make sure they could enjoy their retirement without worrying about basic expenses. What I didn't know was how they really saw me. The family ATM just sent another $3,000, my brother had texted, followed by my dad's response. LMAO, keep that gravy train running. She's too stupid to realize we're using her. Then my mother, just bought those golf clubs your father wanted. Jordan would flip if she knew her money was going to those instead of medication. The screenshots kept coming, years of conversations about how to manipulate me, how to play on my sympathies, how to extract more money. I couldn't breathe as I scrolled through message after message. Kevin quickly tried to delete them, but it was too late. I'd seen everything. 3 years of them laughing at my generosity, planning expensive vacations while telling me they couldn't afford their medications, upgrading their cars while claiming their heating bill was overwhelming their budget. For the last day, my phone had been blowing up with texts and calls from my family. My dad swore they were just joking around. My mom said I was taking things out of context. Kevin claimed he was just going along with it, to stay on our parents' good side. But their own words had exposed the ugly truth. The rain intensified outside, matching the storm raging inside me. I'd been financing their comfortable retirement for years, thinking I was helping them survive. Meanwhile, they'd been living it up, laughing at how easily they could manipulate their stupid, successful daughter. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. A sharp knock interrupted my thoughts. I crossed to the door, still clutching my phone, and looked through the peephole. Kevin stood on my porch, soaking wet, his expression pleading. I felt my jaw tighten. I wasn't ready for this conversation, but maybe it was time to hear what he had to say. After all, I had some things to say too. I opened the door but blocked the entrance. What do you want? Kevin looked miserable, rain dripping from his hair. Jordan, please. Can I come in? I can explain everything. Explain what? How you've all been laughing at me for years? I held up my phone, the screen still showing one of his texts. Just told Jordan Dad needs dental surgery. Ka-ching. It's not what it looks like, Kevin pleaded, his voice cracking. Mom and Dad, they started it and I just went along with it. So you were just following orders? Like some kind of financial Nazi? The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but I couldn't stop myself. I've been sending $3,000 every month, Kevin. That's $36,000 a year. For 5 years. Do you know what that adds up to? Kevin looked down. I know it's a lot. $180,000, Kevin. And that doesn't include the extra for Dad's supposed medical expenses or Mom's broken furnace last winter. I felt sick saying the words, remembering how I'd skipped a vacation to send them an extra $5,000 for a furnace that apparently never needed replacing. Look, they took it too far, I know, but they're getting older and they're 65, not 95. Dad's still golfing every weekend with his fancy new clubs that I paid for while thinking he needed medication. I was shouting now, not caring if the neighbors heard. Please, Jordan, they're freaking out. Dad's worried about his heart medication. I laughed bitterly. The medication that doesn't exist? Or the real medicine he actually needs that I've been paying for while you all blow the money on luxury items? Kevin's face crumpled. I messed up. I know that. But they really do need your help now. All those extras. They've gotten used to the lifestyle. They can't afford their mortgage without you. Their mortgage on the lakeside condo they bought last year while telling me they were struggling to pay rent on their modest apartment. I felt a strange calm settling over me. I think you should leave. Jordan, please. Number, I've been Jordan, please, for too long. Now I'm just Jordan. And Jordan is done. After Kevin left, I sank into my couch, my entire body trembling. The screenshots from their group chat played on repeat in my mind. In one, my father had written, "Just told Jordan the roof is leaking. Let's see how much we can squeeze out of her this time." My mother had replied, "She's such a sucker for helping family. I almost feel bad. Almost." Then Kevin, "Maybe we should start a betting pool on how quickly she sends the money." I'd been nothing but an ATM to them, a resource to be drained, a joke. I pulled out my laptop and logged into my banking portal. Every month for the past 5 years, there it was. $3,000 transferred to my parents' joint account, plus all the emergencies, another $40,000 over the years. Dental work that never happened. Car repairs for problems that didn't exist. Medical bills for treatments they never received. And what had I sacrificed? I'd delayed buying my own home for 2 years to help them with their supposed mortgage troubles. I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford both my life and theirs. I'd skipped vacations, bought secondhand furniture, and cut corners on my own life to make sure they were comfortable. For what? So they could laugh at me. So they could buy golf clubs and take cruises while I worried if they were eating properly. I opened another tab and logged into the investment account I'd set up for them 3 years ago. My secret plan to surprise them with a supplemental retirement fund when they turned 70. I'd been contributing $1,000 monthly. The balance showed just over $42,000. My finger hovered over the close account button. Number not yet. I needed a clear head for this. I called my best friend Megan, who was also my attorney. They did what? She practically screamed when I explained the situation. I know, I said, my voice hollow. I've been an idiot. No, Jordan. You've been kind. They're the ones who should be ashamed. Her voice softened. What do you want to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to just cut them off completely. Another part wants to confront them and hear them try to explain themselves. Before you do anything, we need to review what you've set up for them legally. Are they on any of your accounts, insurance policies, the retirement supplement you mentioned? I felt a chill. I hadn't even thought about all the ways we were financially entangled. Beyond the monthly transfers and the investment account, I'd added them to my premium health insurance policy as dependents 2 years ago. My father's heart medication, which I now question the existence of, was covered under my plan. They were also beneficiaries on my life insurance policy. I need to untangle all of this, I realized aloud. One step at a time, Megan counseled. First, gather all the documentation of what you've given them. Bank statements, texts asking for money, everything. Second, make a list of all financial connections you need to sever. Third, decide if you want to communicate with them about why you're doing this. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Your father is very upset. His blood pressure is through the roof because of your behavior. We need to talk now. Something inside me hardened. The manipulation was still happening even now. They still thought I would fold, that I would come running the moment they mentioned a health concern. Not anymore. I opened my laptop again and began taking screenshots of every monthly transfer. Then I started a document titled Family Financial Support, 5 years, and began listing every dollar, every supposed emergency, every sacrifice I'd made. By the time I finished, the document was 12 pages long and the truth was inescapable. I wasn't just hurt, I was done. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My path forward was suddenly crystal clear. Before doubt could creep in, I called into work, telling my assistant I needed a personal day. This would require my full attention. Jordan Wright speaking, I answered when my phone rang 20 minutes later. Ms. Wright, this is Samuel from Vermont Community Bank. I'm returning your call about closing an investment account. Yes, thank you for getting back to me so quickly. I took a deep breath. I need to close the supplemental retirement account I set up for Robert and Patricia Wright. I see. May I ask if there's a problem with the account? No problem with the account, I said. Just a problem with the intended recipients. After confirming my identity and authority over the account, Samuel walked me through the process. Since I was the sole controller of the account, it had been intended as a gift. I could close it without my parents' knowledge or consent. The $42,680 would be transferred back to my primary account within 3 business days. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Ms. Wright? Actually, yes. I'd like to cancel all recurring transfers to the joint account belonging to Robert and Patricia Wright. Those are currently set at $3,000 monthly, correct? Correct? My voice didn't waver. I'd like that stopped immediately. Step 1 complete. Next, I called my health insurance provider. This one was trickier. Mid-year changes to dependents required a qualifying life event, and discovering your parents have been scamming you wasn't on their list. But after explaining my situation to a sympathetic representative named Miguel, he found a solution. Since they have their own residence, and you no longer provide more than 50% of their financial support, we can process this as a change in dependent status, he explained. They'll receive notification that they've been removed from your policy effective at the end of the month, which gives them 30 days to find alternative coverage. That's perfect, I said. Thank you for understanding. Family situations can be complicated, Miguel said kindly. Been there myself. Step 2 complete. The life insurance policy was the easiest change. A simple online form removed my parents as beneficiaries and replaced them with a local children's charity. By noon, I'd systematically dismantled every financial connection to my family except one, my brother Kevin's student loan, which I'd been paying for the past 3 years. He still had 2 years of payments left at $580 monthly. That one gave me pause. Kevin had participated in the deception, but he'd also seemed genuinely remorseful. Had he been pressured by our parents? Or was he just sorry he got caught? My phone pinged with a text from Kevin. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Dad says his prescription refill was denied at the pharmacy. What did you do? That answered that question. Not a word of apology or understanding, just more pressure to restore the flow of money. I replied, their consequences are not my problem anymore. My phone immediately rang. Kevin. I sent it to voicemail. Instead, I opened my email and composed a formal letter to my parents, attaching the 12-page document I'd created the night before. I titled it simply, Financial Support Provided, 2018 to 2023. The email read, Robert and Patricia, attached is a comprehensive accounting of the financial support I have provided over the past 5 years, totaling $221,865. This includes monthly transfers, emergency funds, medical expenses, and the supplemental retirement account I established for you. As of today, all recurring transfers have been stopped. You have been removed as dependents from my health insurance policy effective May 31st, and the retirement account has been closed. Your duplicity has been documented with screenshots of your own messages, revealing how you have systematically manipulated and deceived me while mocking my generosity. Do not contact me again unless it is to repay what you have taken under false pretenses. Jordan Wright. I read it over twice, attached the document, and hit send. Step 3 complete. Then I blocked their numbers on my phone, removed them from my social media, and sat back in my chair, exhausted but relieved. For the first time in years, My money was truly my own. I managed 3 days of blessed silence before they found a way around my blocks. The doorbell rang at 8:30 p.m. while I was reviewing client proposals. Through the peephole, I saw my parents and Kevin standing on my porch, their faces a mixture of anger and panic. I didn't open the door. Instead, I called Megan. "They're at my house," I whispered, as if they might hear me through the walls. "Do not let them in," she said firmly. "If they don't leave, call the police for trespassing." "That feels extreme." "Trust me, Jordan. Once they're inside, it'll be much harder to get them out, physically and emotionally." The doorbell rang again, followed by pounding. "Jordan," my father shouted, "we know you're in there. You can't just cut us off without talking to us." I sent a text to Kevin. "I have nothing to say. Please leave or I'll call the police." Through the peephole, I watched Kevin check his phone, show it to my parents, and then have what appeared to be a heated discussion. My mother seemed to be crying, while my father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Eventually, they left, but not before my father shouted, "You're going to regret this, Jordan. We're family. You can't just abandon us." The irony of him using the word abandon wasn't lost on me. They'd abandoned any pretense of loving me years ago, seeing me only as a resource to exploit. The next morning, the emails started. My mother wrote a lengthy guilt trip about my father's health declining without his medication. My father sent a terse message demanding I stop this childish behavior immediately. Kevin pleaded that our parents couldn't afford their mortgage payment without my help. I forwarded each one to Megan without responding to them. 3 days later, I received a certified letter from my parents. Inside was a handwritten note from my mother. "Jordan, we don't understand why you're punishing us like this. Yes, we made some jokes in poor taste, but that's what families do. Your father's heart medication is $450 per month without insurance. Our mortgage is due next week, and we can't cover it without your help. We might lose our condo. Is that what you want? For your elderly parents to be homeless? Please stop this cruelty and talk to us." I nearly laughed at the elderly comment. They were both 65 and in good health. My father's golf game had never been better, according to the country club photos Kevin had accidentally included in one of those fateful screenshots. I called the pharmacy where my father filled his prescriptions, pretending to be my mother. "I'm calling about my husband Robert Wright's heart medication. What's the cost without insurance?" "Let me check," the pharmacist said. After a moment, "It's $42 for a 30-day supply, Mrs. Wright." Not $450. Another lie. That evening, Kevin showed up at my office as I was leaving. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled. "Jordan, please," he said, stepping in front of me. "They're falling apart. Dad's talking about bankruptcy." "That's not my problem," I replied, trying to step around him. "How can you be so cold? They're our parents." "Are they? Because real parents don't exploit their children. Real parents don't laugh behind their kids' backs about how stupid and gullible they are. They made mistakes, but—" "No," I cut him off. "A mistake is forgetting a birthday. What they did was calculated and cruel. For years, Kevin. Years. The condo is going into foreclosure. They can't make the payments without you." I felt a momentary pang of guilt, but then remembered a screenshot. "Just convinced Jordan we're struggling with rent. Meanwhile, we're closing on the lake condo next week. Cheers." "They shouldn't have bought a place they couldn't afford," I said flatly. "What about Dad's medication? The prescription that costs $42, not $450, he can get a job at Walmart if he needs to cover that." Kevin's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I did my research. No more lies, Kevin." I walked past him to my car. "Tell them to look into government assistance programs. That's what they're there for." "Jordan," he called after me. "They're talking about moving in with me. I can't handle that." I turned back. "That sounds like a you problem, Kevin. Welcome to consequences." 2 weeks after cutting my family off, I was sitting in a therapy session I'd finally scheduled for myself. Dr. Bennett, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, listened as I recounted the whole sordid story. Every day I swing between feeling strong and feeling horrible, I admitted. Like yesterday, I found out from a mutual friend that my parents had to cancel their country club membership. I actually felt guilty about it for hours. That's normal, Doctor, Bennett said. You're grieving the family you thought you had. That includes grieving the role you played as their supporter. But they didn't deserve my support. They were using me. Both things can be true at once. They didn't deserve your support, and you can still feel loss about no longer providing it. I pondered that while Dr. Bennett continued. The role of family provider clearly became part of your identity. Now you're redefining who you are without that role. I hadn't thought about it that way, but she was right. For 5 years, I'd tied my self-worth to being the successful daughter who could support her parents. Who was I now? As I was leaving my session, I received an unexpected call from my Uncle Pete, my father's brother who lived across the country in Oregon. We weren't close, but I answered out of curiosity. Jordan? It's your Uncle Pete. I just got a strange call from your father asking if he and your mother could come live with us for a while. He said you'd cut them off financially and they were about to lose their home. Is that true? I sighed. It's complicated, Uncle Pete. I figured. Your dad has always had a talent for selective storytelling. His tone was dry. Want to tell me your side? So I did, explaining everything from the screenshots to the lies about medical expenses. When I finished, there was a long silence. I'm not surprised, he finally said. Your father tried to pull similar stunts with me years ago. It's why we're not close. I refuse to fund his lifestyle. You knew? I felt a wave of betrayal all over again. Why didn't you warn me? Would you have believed me? They had you convinced they were struggling and you were their hero. Sometimes people have to discover the truth themselves. He was right. I wouldn't have believed him. For what it's worth, he added, I told your father I wouldn't take them in. I suggested they downsize and live within their means. He hung up on me. After we disconnected, I felt strangely validated. I wasn't crazy for cutting them off. I wasn't a horrible daughter. I was just the latest target of their manipulation, and I'd finally wised up. That evening, I received a text from Kevin from a new number. Mom and Dad are moving into my spare room next week. They're selling the condo. Dad's furious about it. I can't believe this is happening. I didn't respond. 3 days later, another text. The condo is on the market. Dad's car got repossessed yesterday. This is getting really bad. I almost texted back, almost asked if they needed help with moving expenses. But then I remembered a particular screenshot where Kevin had written, Jordan just asked if Dad was doing okay after his doctor's appointment. For the heart issue that doesn't exist. Ha 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 ha. They'd made their choices. Now they were living with the consequences. Week 3 brought an email from a name I didn't recognize. The subject line, Message from your parents. Apparently, they'd enlisted a family friend to reach out since I'd blocked them everywhere. The message detailed how they'd been forced to sell most of their furniture, how my father's health was deteriorating from the stress, and how they'd had to apply for food stamps, something my proud father considered humiliating. The email concluded, they just want a chance to talk to you, to explain and apologize. I considered it for all of 5 seconds before hitting delete. Their idea of an apology would be whatever they thought might turn the money faucet back on. I was done being manipulated, done being their ATM. For the first time in years, my money was going toward my future, not their pretend emergencies. The guilt was fading, replaced by something unexpected. Freedom. 6 months after I'd cut off all contact, I arrived home from a business trip to find my parents sitting on my porch steps. My father had lost weight, and my mother's carefully maintained highlights had grown out, revealing gray roots. They were both wearing clothes I didn't recognize, cheaper looking than their usual attire. My instinct was to turn around and drive away. but Dr. Bennett and I had discussed this possibility in therapy. I was stronger now. I could face them without being manipulated. I parked in the driveway and approached slowly, my heart pounding. "What are you doing here?" "Jordan," my mother's voice cracked. "Please, we just want to talk." "We've learned our lesson," my father added. "These past months have been hell." I unlocked my door. "You have 5 minutes." Inside, they perched awkwardly on my couch while I remained standing, arms crossed. "We're sorry," my mother began. "We never should have taken advantage of your generosity." My father nodded. "We've lost everything, the condo, the car, our savings. We had to move in with Kevin, and his place is so small. Your mother has to sleep on a pull-out couch." "The country club revoked our membership," my mother added. "All our friends there. They don't call anymore." "My medication costs have been terrible without your insurance," my father continued. "Medicare doesn't cover everything." I listened to them list everything they'd lost, waiting for an actual apology. It never came. There was no, "We're sorry we hurt you," or "We were wrong to mock you." Just a catalog of their hardships and implied blame that I had caused them. "Is that it?" I asked when they finally fell silent. "We want to make things right," my mother said. "We've really suffered, Jordan. We've learned our lesson." "What lesson would that be?" They exchanged glances. "That we shouldn't have taken you for granted," my father finally said. Translation: They should have been more careful about getting caught. "No," I said softly. "You haven't learned anything." "What do you mean?" my mother asked, her voice rising slightly. "We came all this way to apologize." "No, you came all this way to tell me how much you've suffered without my money. Not once have you acknowledged how your betrayal made me feel." "We said we're sorry," my father protested. "For getting caught, maybe. Not for what you did." I took a deep breath. In the past 6 months, I've thought a lot about what a healthy family looks like. It's not this. It's not treating your child like an ATM and mocking her behind her back. My mother's face hardened. "So you're just going to keep punishing us? Over a few jokes?" "This isn't punishment. This is me protecting myself from people who've shown they don't have my best interests at heart." "We're your parents," my father said, as if that explained everything. "And I was your daughter, not your personal bank." I moved toward the door, opening it. "I wish you well, I really do. I hope you find a way to live comfortably within your means, but I can't be part of your lives anymore." "You can't mean that," my mother whispered, tears forming. "We need you." "That's the problem. You don't need me. You need what I can provide. There's a difference." My father stood, anger replacing his earlier contrition. "So that's it? After everything we've done for you?" "What exactly have you done for me, Dad? Besides take and take and take?" He had no answer. As they walked out the door, my mother turned back. "You'll regret this, Jordan. Family is all you have in the end." I shook my head. "No, Mom. Family is supposed to be the people who love you unconditionally. I've built that family with my friends. What you offered was just a transaction." I closed the door and leaned against it, listening to their footsteps retreat down the path. I expected to feel guilt or grief. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The ATM was permanently closed, and for the first time in my adult life, I was truly free.